Today, it's like we're co-streaming the Video Game Awards, but there's no stream and no awards. This is ChillPoint.
However, it will be nothing but trailers today.
Yeah. I mean, we could be co-streaming a different stream right now and just not showing it and not having the audio play.
What's on right now?
It's a philosophical question. Are you actually co-streaming?
This is the world exclusive premiere of this episode of ChillPoint.
God.
It's true. Premiere!
I want to hit you for that. I'm going to.
Every episode of CheckPoint is the premiere of that episode of CheckPoint.
I think all of our I think Studio P and probably also maybe Studio B for the podcast, but Studio P especially needs to have a button you can hit to just start flashing world premiere or world exclusive on the screen for like a couple seconds.
Please don't flash it. Like
like that.
Keep it slow. I don't want anyone to have a visual problem. This is one of our most visual friendly shows.
Or make it like kind of like blink a little bit, just like not like the whole thing blink, but kind of like increase in intensity, so it's like low intensity. And then
have it like neon lights that are burning out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that's what kind of world premiere we would do.
That's it.
I definitely could do that.
I know you could. In fact, I'm pretty sure you could probably gin up something rudimentary by the end of this.
I mean,
if you were quiet for 10 minutes, you'd probably figure it out.
I mean, I have this button.
Oh shit.
For when something spooky happens.
I mean, it is June, the spookiest month of the year.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Jump scare.
Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we talk about video game news, and specifically the video game news that happened last week as related to the episode of CheckPoint that went up yesterday, and also some other stuff. Because, sometimes the news doesn't quite fit with CheckPoint and things. And also, if you should, if you didn't get to see our co-stream of the Summer Games Fest, we will be, or I say we, but Heather will be attempting to get it up onto YouTube in the near future. Attempting because... we don't quite know how YouTube will react
like
to
it.
Yeah.
But
it's supposed to be like relatively good in terms of copyright. So there might be like one or two bits that it doesn't like, but we'll have to see.
Now I am a little behind on the VODs for the last week because of the PPR video stuff I've had to do. But in general, when we have a VOD go down on Twitch or one we don't record on Twitch, I do push that one up to the top of the list to try and get it up because I know that's a little bit more relevant. So if it is allowed by YouTube, you'll probably see it sometime up tomorrow.
Nice.
And if it is not, well, blame YouTube. I do every day.
Yeah.
Generally at least once an hour.
If you don't, if we are unable to put it up on YouTube, then you can just watch through the Video Game Awards and make your own snarky comments.
Some of our comments were predictable, so
they'll probably be pretty similar to what we talked about. Let's get into the episode of CheckPoint because we can this is where we can give a little bit more background info on the CheckPoint episode, which went up a little late this week because of the we weren't able to record it until later because of the aforementioned Video Game Awards. And the first,
not the Video Game Awards.
Not the Video Game
I
Awards.
know it felt like the Video Game Awards, but there were
Summer
no awards
Games
given
Fest.
out.
Yeah, I
Summer
know you had
Games
said that
Fest.
twice already, and I was
Have
just
I said it twice already?
Yeah, and I was like,
Summer
I
Games
think
Fest.
The
video game show.
Yeah.
So the first story we're talking about is actually not even a story from this week. It's a story from last week. But I think the info of this came out like on Thursday or Friday, and because of course Graham was sick last week, he wasn't able to talk about it. and he really wanted to. And so, yeah, we talk about Quantic Dream and their continued legal difficulties that seem to be largely self-inflicted.
Yeah.
I mean, not obviously they're self-inflicted in the sense that they are, trying to sue people for libel, but also self-inflicted in terms of the difficulties.
If we start rolling back to the troubles they are having, it's like, well, it seems you've done that shit to yourself. And then when it got reported on, it's like, well, now we have to have a lawsuit. It's like, oh, it seems you're doing that to yourself as well.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I guess
This could be-
all of the court. Yeah, they could have avoided this by either A, not doing the shitty things,
Yeah.
That would be my preferred method. Don't be shitty.
Yeah.
or B, owning up to doing the shitty things and not trying to sue the people for libel.
Yeah.
Either of those
Yeah.
things would have kept them out of court.
We'd rather you not say that we're shitty. Okay, well let's go to court. Well, we're gonna take you to court. Cool. Here's the shitty things you said. How dare you? Like,
Yeah.
Like now it's
oh
going to
God,
be
this guy is just a dick, and he should.
like now
Go
it's
away.
not just going to be like an article. It's going to be like, official legal record that they did
Yeah.
these terrible things. But of
Even-
course they're not. He's not under oath, so that means he can lie.
Yeah, okay. Like even I wouldn't say a sentence like that and then start. My sentence always starts with, "Hey everybody, welcome to my house of lies," and then I proceed to lie. Like I'm very aware that I'm doing it, and you're going to be aware that I'm doing it too. Not.
Yeah.
That's you should.
I don't do. I wouldn't
start
do that
Rhythm
in court.
Cafe
That
with
would be like.
with like, just so you know, I'm not under oath, so I'm allowed to lie. Welcome to
Yeah.
Rhythm Cafe.
I will point out, Paul, that during Rhythm Cafe, when I mentioned that we're in a house of lies, it's literally so people know that I am lying, because sometimes I think they may believe the things I say, and I'm afraid that they will believe the things I say. And no one should. Not during Rhythm Cafe.
Rhythm Cafe is a truth-free zone.
We had a question in chat briefly, though. I want to just bring this up. To Emily asked, how would you spell ChillPoint when you take into account the Canadian spelling of check? I mean, what they meant to say was the correct spelling of check, with a QUE at the end instead of the CK. But because it would be French, it would mean that you actually don't pronounce those two L's.
Okay, but
Right.
really,
It would be like
isn't
ChillPoint.
Isn't check with a QUE like the written check?
It sure is.
Whereas we still would say check like a check mark.
If we were looking at something, we would
That's
check
true.
it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is it is a fallacy that's how we would spell it.
Well,
Exactly.
no, I just what I want to clarify then is, does that mean CheckPoint meant to be we're checking off something, or we're meant to be paying something? Because if we're meant to be paying something, we might be doing the show wrong on top of the spelling.
Yeah, I don't think we're paying for anything with check. That's the microcurrency, right? Is you get check
Oh
points.
goodness.
Yes. And I'm a
Jeez,
points
no.
collector.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get that in there, that if you were Quebecois, you would not pronounce those two L's. It'd be like saying, instead of saying papillon, you'd say papillion or whatever. It's like, no, so this would be ChillPoint. ChillPoint.
I will remind you that Twitch has a feature called Channel Points, in which we don't really do anything with, and so
No.
you may keep all of those and feel like you have a hoard of points, like a dragon,
And someday we'll
which
come
there
up with,
was a lot of during Game Fest.
I'm sure
by
at
the
some
way.
point we'll come to some sort of ice cream based reward system.
No,
Then we'll
We
use those
did.
points for
James still hasn't given me the ice cream from that Channel Point challenge.
We had a bit of a discussion about that the other day,
Yeah.
which involved which I actually looked up when that challenge went out, which was more recently than I thought it was. It was like
Ah, yes.
September.
September.
Yeah.
Yodas
For
in
some reason, I
October.
thought it was like a year and a half ago.
I know.
that happens.
As far as I can tell, is that James has had a lot of time indoors to be looked, and I think he bought himself a T-shirt cannon, and he did ask for everyone's addresses the other day. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just remembered that.
yeah,
I
one of those things is probably a lie.
One of those. All right. I'll post extra sentries outside the door
All right.
for the next week.
So
So yeah, I mean, Graham covered it pretty fully in the Quantic Dream story. That is basically like nothing has been resolved on it yet.
No.
July 8th is when the ruling's coming down. But it's clear that they seem to be mostly they don't seem to be doing too well in terms of presenting stuff, and certainly not doing anything. Considering presumably this entire thing was to, the reason why they would be suing for libel is to like restore their good name, I guess.
Their reputation.
Their reputation. I guess. I mean, that's why you would accuse somebody of libel, right? For destroying.
Yeah.
What if maybe like halfway through this court case, the defense, like the people, the magazines that did this can like change their. It's like, not only is this not libel, but the requirement of actually us, having had a effect on your reputation is now null and void because your reputation is at a point where we could not actually destroy it more. So
Can he sue the courts for libeling
I
him
don't
by making him say the
Himself?
things
Yeah.
that
in
you can
court?
do that. I mean,
sue his own
frankly,
mouth?
his reputation was already in the toilet. It wasn't like it was
Well,
gonna get any better anytime soon.
This was 2018
Yeah.
when these articles came out. Like the stuff that came out about Quantic Dream being, a crappy place to work was a bit of a revelation when it came out. Like,
Sure.
David Cage, he has like the order of whatever. There's like the whatever the honor for the French government for like excellent, the equivalent of the Order of Canada or whatever, like
Yeah.
for excellence in being
An industry thing.
yeah, sure, for being a great French person. But
I feel like the French people I know is skewed, and I feel very bad for all of. I
These
I
things are
meet
not-
some people who are French who are really nice because I don't know any, and I would like to at this point.
It's the fact that these things are not mutually exclusive, though. So using that as a pivot point to be like, how could I possibly do anything wrong in my company? I have the order of the I have the order of the France, and it's like cool. That doesn't necessarily. There's probably all sorts of people that run terrible multinational companies that have the order of the France.
That wouldn't be
But-
surprising given his excuses for not being racist and not being homophobic.
Right? So
it's that he was sort of being held up by not only the industry but sort of even like the sort of French cultural thing as being like a wonderful example of a homegrown like
yeah.
auteur, and that has certainly waned over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
One of our most well received, laughed at clips from our highlights reel is that talking sim where they're playing that game where
Detroit Become Human.
the robot talks about like slavery in the railroad, and right after Cameron and Corey say something about this game not knowing certain things, like.
To be fair, that's the most viewed, partially because it got posted on like Imager or something, and people didn't actually get that it was part of a larger thing.
Yeah, but it does come up within our own Discord a lot as a thing.
We were contacted by one of those fail compilations to be like, can we use this? And we're like, yeah, you know what? Use it. Just link back to us. As far as the whole point was it was like, staged to show that this is a ridiculous thing that people say about the game.
Yeah, like it's
yeah.
Anyway, I'd be interested, like with that, like I would be interested to see Cage do something about like French culture that maybe he might know more about than, and rather than sort of trying to, rather than sort of trying to make this ham-handed allegory with Detroit Become Human or whatever. It might be more interesting if he actually, did something in the culture that he's part of.
As far as these lawsuits go, the thing that I am wondering is, if they lose this case, then case law is pretty heavily established at that. Like it's not like these laws have never been tested. But then case law gets established even further to say that, look, even in a situation like this, where you can be taken to court as a media company for saying for potential libel, that the tests would get greater. You know, like at the point where you have, I guess, a hearing or whatever it is that you would do at this point to be like, we're actually going to see whether this passes the sniff test, that this is actually libel or not. That you would have this point where it'd be like, okay, if based on the Quantic Dream having lost this case, let's say they lose the case.
I hope they do.
Does that mean that in the future that if somebody else steps up to say, hey, so we want to sue Le Monde because they were doing libel, that the court has to be like, okay, now we have to evaluate this to be like, well, in this case, the court said that this didn't qualify ultimately.
So Treyon in the chat says that France is a civil law country, so case law is far less of a thing than what we are used to.
Yeah, like I don't think there's any big precedents being established here. I think it's just basically can the Le Monde and Mediapart people sort of prove that they had reasonable that they weren't just making this stuff up whole cloth, that they had reasonable information. I think that's the main aspect of this, that's being like, which, like, I don't think it's like a precedent that needs to be, that's sort of being locked in.
If Quantic Dream wins, despite the way that everything looks, then what that does is it again sets other things to be like, well, it would embolden an awful lot of other companies to be like, hey, somebody said something mean about us. Well, they didn't. Somebody reported the truth about us, and we don't want that truth getting out because it makes us look shitty. So now we have a reason to go to court to sue these people because it seems like there'd be a greater chance of us being able to beat this whole rap.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't think Quantic Dream's move here is that unprecedented, though. Like, the idea of suing a magazine or whatever for reporting something detrimental to you is not that unusual. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I think it's only unusual for us because this is hitting the gaming news circuit. You know, like those are the court cases we hear about. We don't read about a lot of the other ones because they're not, at least not within ChillPoint.
Now,
as people point out, apparently France operates on a different sort of thing that we're used to. So,
yeah, civil law being different than common law was definitely something that I was taught in my law courses, but we weren't taught how they were that different. Like, we weren't taught that these things represent different things. It's like, well, because you have to know in Canada, of course, that Quebec is largely based on French civil law as opposed to English common law, and it's like. Right. But what does that actually mean? It's like, well, we don't teach that because this is intro to law as opposed to how the French legal system works, right? So
go to Quebec, find out. That's
a lot of reading.
Take a different course and we will teach you that.
I don't have the time for that kind of information dump.
Yeah.
Except I guess anyway.
I will point out, though,
weird. That is weird the way different things apply in different areas. But anyway,
I will point out before we move on, because I'm assuming that we're ready to move on this thing, that July 8th is a Thursday, and if that ruling comes out in France, maybe we'll have an update for the story for CheckPoint or either our ChillPoint, and that could be fun.
We would almost certainly
if the translation happens fast enough.
Yeah, I think we would almost certainly have a ruling, and people would say something about it probably prior to us filming.
Maybe it's like we either have the chance to get it just that weekend, or it'll have to be the week after. But I don't know. I feel at the very least a snarky coming up of like, hey, guess what? They lost.
Yeah,
is our speed and our gloating, because I'd do it.
And now, so there was also this story about Door in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
And clearly some people need it explained.
Which
is fine.
There was a couple. There was both. There was the both. You know, you get the both sides in the chat. It's the people, or in the comments, in the YouTube comments, right? The people who are like, I didn't get this. And also people who are like, no, you don't understand the problem. So people who don't know anything about this and people who know way more about this.
Yeah, I will point out that when I went to go do the editing of that story, I grabbed Beej and I'm like, okay, you need to tell me if the pictures are popping up at the right times and what they mean, because I don't know I'm not exactly. You just keep yelling the word door a lot.
Yeah.
I wish I had I think it might have worked or might have made more sense to people if the images that I had available of the two different versions of the door were not like the best illustration of what
they're terrible.
Change was. So I think the change is actually quite dramatic. And you know, as people who have played, apparently, like it's just like it's one of these things where it's just like a totally weird thing that's just like it's just effectively an untextured door, or a door that's texture is so bad that it's just like you know, blurred out in the middle of this really nice textured thing. And it's been like that for like way longer than it should. Like there's been updates to the game and stuff, and it doesn't get fixed. And then in the PS5 version, they fix it, but they're not going back to fix it in the PS4 version.
Yeah, which is kind of scummy, honestly.
Which is super
well, maybe
dumb.
not scummy, crummy. It's at least very crummy to not do that kind of a fix.
Yeah.
In your original.
I mean, I saw this hit the thing, and I mean, Paul, you put this in the you put this in the thing, and I'm like, well, why is there a thing about this door? And I read the Polygon article, I think, that this got brought up in, and they had largely their take was a much more toned down take than what I had, which is essentially
really? Their take wasn't.
Yeah.
Really?
It wasn't just the word door over and over again.
You know how it is. And so the two things that get brought up is that yes, the door was made less shiny. And when I saw the two images, I was like, what do you mean less shiny? I can't tell what less shiny means in the representation of these two pictures, but that's apparently, according to what people are saying, it's less shiny. So I'm like, okay, so it's less shiny, and also the textures were upped. I'm like, see, if I had said they used a higher res texture, be like, oh, well, that makes sense why they did it. But I'm like, this entire story is a ridiculous thing to begin with. That it's such a focus for people. It's such a ridiculous thing to begin with. If I make a point in this story, it's going to completely undermine the sheer ridiculousness that I come up with to illustrate the ridiculousness of the story in the first place.
And that's why I also zoomed in on your face.
Sometimes the delivery is the message more than the medium.
That zoom was added in post, and it was specifically because I thought it was funny.
Nice. There is, you know, we talk about this on ChillPoint and in comments and stuff a lot, is that, you know, CheckPoint is, you know, comedy, right? So sometimes that involves, you know, we try to present the things as accurately as possible, but sometimes mostly for like brevity or for comedic effect, we present things, you know, in a slightly different way. And this would be one of those times. And
this is like boiling down the story to a very basic point.
Yeah,
it's the
this
fact
could have been a quick point.
It's the fact that this was such a sticking point for people that it became this sort of meme that it's like, this door is still broken. Why is this door? Why can't they fix this?
Yeah. And yet, it's like, the door isn't broken. It's still functional. It's still doing the thing it's supposed to do. It's not... Because when I saw that, oh, well, the door is broken, I'm like, oh, that's weird that they would have this thing. And then I read it multiple times. I'm like, they fixed it in the PS5 version, but not in the remake. The door is broken. What is broken about it? And I keep looking at him like, there's nothing broken about... The door still functions as a door. Like, if if the door was not on its hinges and you couldn't open it, or you couldn't, or if it's glued shut, or if the door was like sitting, if the door was on its hinges but it was glued open.
Somebody put a bucket of water at the top of the door, and we don't understand why the bucket won't fall.
And if you want to get into the real existential nature of it, it's like, what actually constitutes a door? Because when a door is open, it's still a door.
Okay.
It's just not performing the function of a door because it's not blocking an egress point. But it's still technically a door, isn't it? When I go buy doors,
Okay, the
Lowe's,
texture was broken, not the door itself.
Right. The texture was incorrect.
Yeah.
But when people saying, well, the door is broken, it's like, I don't know if it is. I mean, if I go to Lowe's to buy doors, there's a ton of doors there, and I recognize them all as doors, just not as pieces of wood. So I know that I know that they're doors, but they're not performing any function of a door.
I mean, although I will say from a aesthetic point of view, I mean, Beej, you're a guy who likes to have, your space in a well organized and have things set up correctly, right?
I agree. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if you had the whatever nice wood paneling going along your wall, and then a door that's just like not painted, and then rest, that would bother you. Right?
It would definitely bother me. The door is still technically acting as a door.
Oh, it would still be a door.
It's just not correct.
As a counterpoint to that, somebody in the what I love in the Twitter thread for when people were like, "Yay, the door got fixed," somebody was like, "When will they fix this?"
Oh fuck!
Which is the hanging
shiny
pots.
Flowers?
No, the hanging. Look at the pot. The way the pots are hanging.
The flower pot.
No, just the regular pot. It's hanging in a way that there's no way that pot could be taken off the rail.
Okay, yeah, but people do silly things like that all the time.
That is. Oh yeah.
Also, I doubt he really eats here.
It is a purely decorative cooking pot. Anyway.
I want to point out that in Bija's story, while we're reading the comments to the episode of CheckPoint, that yes, you're right. Most of the comments were either adorable, which is great. Please always put pun comments in all of our episodes of everything. I don't care what it is, as long as it's relevant.
It's the good engagement.
I like that. That's for me specifically. If there was I don't know what the story is about, I know everything about this story and I don't think you accurately portrayed it, but not a single comment about how you said that this door was the pinnacle of every Final Fantasy experience when he didn't even have an apartment in the original.
Yeah.
So there would have been no door.
No one mentioned that. Weird that, huh?
I think people it was like one of those, it was like pedantic geek trap that the people who would normally have been like, wait a minute, there wasn't even a door in Final Fantasy, got distracted by the like, wait a minute, he's doing it wrong. Anyway, let's talk about the Playdate. Yeah, Heather has a special edition super flat one.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's
Yeah.
so slim.
The Playdate's been around in production for a while. They showed it off at a PAX we went to maybe in 2018.
I think it might have been 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Sure.
I
don't remember when the last one happened.
The last PAX West that I went to, Panic was there and had Playdates available for play. And so that might have been the last time, yeah.
And for those of you who were like, hey, didn't we hear, isn't this a thing that's been around for a long time? We did do a story about it back in 2019, but that was not, it wasn't coming out right away then.
I have to give them some props for their advertising, because like free stickers for one, I believe in what is supposed to be a very close, if not the actual size of the device. But like the back of it says play.date. And then there's like this hugely fine print that says
Just a block.
So Steve is nervous nobody will know that's a URL. So just to be clear, you know how some websites end in .com or .org? Well, they added a bunch of new ones like .condos or .feocia or .nu or whatever. And so our website actually ends in .date. That's real. Actually, that's the URL. And it just kind of goes on and on about how they're very excited that they got the URL that says play.date.
Yeah.
And they
Because they
really
might not
wanted
have.
people to know that this is not like a fun way of writing Playdate, that the dot was important.
There's every reason. I mean, if I was Steve, I'd have been like, yeah, I think we might have to put the HTTP thing in front of it just so people know. And I bet you though, the people that everyone else at Panic was like, that would look terrible.
And yeah,
We're
we
not
tried to
doing
add
that.
a few words up there, like visit or go to our homepage or HTTP tp.s//
Yeah.
but all of them looked kind of horrible. In conclusion, we were really excited to get a clean URL like play.date, but as we're laying out the sticker back art file, well, we're maybe feeling just a little bit of regret. Not a lot. Please visit our website.
Yeah. See?
Wow.
Like that's better. What they did there is better than putting http://. I'm glad they devoted a bunch of tiny text to it.
Yes.
But yeah, the Playdate, and we talked about this actually like back when it was announced, right? Which is that like myself and Graham and I think Kathleen was doing the story about that as well
Probably.
at the time, and it's like kind of into it. Like it looks super neat, and it's
Yeah.
not like if people are, and it's like one of those things where like you can't compare it to. It's like, why would I get that? It's way less powerful than a PS5, and it's like, or it's like for the same price, I could get an Android phone that does all the same things, and it's like, yeah, that's not the point, right? The point
Yeah.
is the sort of it's the thing and the sort of aesthetics of it, as well as the sort of functionality.
Yeah. So what a Playdate is, if in case anyone doesn't actually know by now, because maybe you don't, and you don't pay attention to the gaming news like the rest of us have to. It's a small, tiny, portable console with an A and B button, a D-pad, and a little crank. And the crank is not for batteries. It's not to make it charged. It is an input device. So it's basically the A or the B button, but you spin it around.
Funny story.
And it's
Yeah, the people, they're like, oh man, the crank should have been like the charging thing. That doesn't work.
no. It would take forever to do
Yeah,
that.
there was actually, I saw an interesting thing that the like one laptop per child, people were talking about that. Like that was in one of the very early prototypes for the one laptop thing that had a crank there.
Yeah,
And
that
they-
would make
they were
sense
like,
to try that out.
It turns out that's stupid. They're
Yeah.
like, they were like, because the amount, it's like one, it's a very fragile mechanism to have in that spot, and you have to do it really fast. And the amount of in something like that, you have so little mechanical advantage. The amount of cranking that you have to do on something like that is totally pointless. They were actually
doing it
setting
for
up
days.
a thing for like a foot pedal that you could use for the one laptop child thing. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. But yes, sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
So they did a Playdate update this week, which is where all this information comes from, of them adding the accessory of the Bluetooth dock speaker, which was actually a fairly fun video to watch. Them be like, hey, we made our first accessory for it, and we also made sure it could hold pens, which means we gave it a pen. So it comes with a pen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's separately. That's with the dock thing. The fact that they've upgraded from 12 games to 24 games because they're doing those in a seasonal way, which is fun. It outputs to computer because I think they want it to be streamer friendly as well. And the thing that really got me was the game making software through the web browser that they're gonna put out, which I've forgotten the name of, but it had a specific name, and that looks like fun. The idea that it's just like, here's this weird little device that I could fool around with making games for free rather than buying game making software.
It reminded me a little
Like
bit of
Mario Maker.
that what is it called? The Pico 8?
Yeah.
Which is it's sort of Pico 8, which is it's like a virtual mini video game system. Like it's a kind of original Nintendo level sort
Very
of
Game Boy-ish feeling.
yeah, Game Boy-ish spec for a video game system that was kind of released as here's a spec for a video game system, and we've got like a web-based emulator for this video game system. And actually, the original version of Celeste, like the original like
Oh,
concept
right,
demo
yeah.
for Celeste, was done on a Pico 8, and you can
And
play
then
it
you can
in Celeste. Yeah,
yeah. The I mean, Playdate's it's when I saw the charging dock, I was just like, oh, I had a TV that looked like this.
Yeah, I think that's the idea.
Yeah, it was like it is this is
I mean, Panic
design forward.
They know what they're doing. They've got the
Yeah.
like hipster aesthetic locked down.
Yeah, and it was very like I remember having a little battery powered TV that had a little flip down foot on it, and the black and white screen that took up like in like a corner of the whatever, and it's just like this is I remember this kind of thing, and the appeal just kind of kicks in hard from there, and I'm like, oh right, I maybe want this, except that I don't want this. I know it's a thing that like a lot of other stuff will just be like, I'll play it for a little while maybe, but it'll mostly just sit.
Well, and I think that's the point of having the games come out the way they're doing them, because it's every week for 12 weeks, the 2 games will show up through Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That you've paid for. For season 1, if you've bought the device, it'll come with those games when they pop up. I'm assuming when you write something like season 1, you're intending to do a season 2. That'll probably be an add-on charge, but the idea is like every week a new game will pop up, so you have that new novelty for a little bit longer than you would if they were all there when the device was out.
And of course they're saying that they are going to be releasing this development stuff, and that people can load new other like sort of side load other games onto it. So
I think like it's great news that given what the last year has been like, and given that, I mean, they've been talking about the Playdate I think for 2 or 3 years prior to that, and I mean that they had demo units you could play, but here we are with an announcement. We know that it's coming in, like you can pre-order it in July. We know that it will be coming out, and that feels really good.
I mean, it sounds like, I mean, Panic hasn't done a lot of hardware before, but they obviously have been around for a long time and they know their stuff. I would suspect, especially since apparently there were, at least samples around in 2019 or 2018. I would suspect that most of this has been just getting their production stuff lined up, and then of course,
they're also working with
messed up stuff.
I forget the name of the people that they're working with, because they're working with
Teenage Engineering.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
really?
It's not like they're making everything themselves without
right, of
prior
course,
knowledge or know-how.
The initial partnership was them saying we want to make a thing, and they were like, we know that Teenage Engineering is really known for not just like making hardware, like making synths and making electronic stuff, but also for making very stylish hardware.
Yeah, they do super stylish, like
very bespoke synths and pedals and
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and it's also just refreshing to hear a company like when they were gonna make that update video, they were like, just so you know, we're gonna tell you when you can pre-order it, but we're not gonna like set the pre-orders live the moment the video happens or right after the video happens, so you don't have to panic, which is nice. And then they were like, okay, pre-orders are up in July. Also, we're gonna leave them open, so you're really just kind of putting in your spot for manufacturing, which is super nice in a time of PS5 scalping and nobody being able to get Switches or whatever other device because supplies are limited, but then you got scalpers on top of that for pre-orders, and I don't know.
To speculate a bit on this as well is that they probably have some idea. They're like, we figure we'll sell about this many, like we'll probably sell maybe 100,000 units or whatever. Right off the top. But to speculate on how supply chain stuff is going to work, if the manufacturing is being done in China, let's say, then it's harder to get something like that up and running because you're competing with everybody else who needs to have stuff manufactured. While people are sick and unable to go to work to manufacture your stuff, while chips are also getting harder and harder to come by. So I have no idea nobody knows what the inside of the Playdate actually looks like and what it needs to properly run. So if that's where it's happening, then that's one thing. But on the other hand, if Teenage Engineering has their own manufacturing setup, and there's investment going into that to be like, this is being made in wherever it is that Teenage Engineering does their manufacturing, which I'm going to say is not China. I don't know if it is or if it isn't, but let's say it is either the United States, or let's say it's Finland, or let's say it's wherever it is that isn't China. There might actually be room in the supply chain to say, like, we can continually manufacture these things for a while.
The video, they said that they would talk to their manufacturers if it went way beyond what they were expecting it to go and whatnot. Like, it seems like they at least intend to try to make this a thing where if anybody wants one, anyone can have one. Which I really appreciate right now.
Yeah.
And actually, I like this. So, a company called Panic is setting up a system where you don't have to panic too much about your pre-orders. A company called Insomniac is now in the news because they are not making their developers lose a bunch of sleep. Yeah. So, yay.
That was... Anytime good news comes out about stuff, I feel like it is incumbent upon us to really try to boost it, right? Like,
and that was kind of like what the article in, like, I think it was in Polygon or something was about, or Game Informer was also about. It was just like, you know what? We're going to report on this article, this thing about crunch, and the thing is that it's not there. We just need some positive stuff about crunch.
I believe our last non-crunch story involved Animal Crossing.
I think so.
Because I think that was the last game that was held up as a, hey, we didn't crunch people.
I mean, we did back in the day report on CDPR not crunching people. Yes. And then later on reported on that not happening.
Oh, did we mention Hades was made without crunch according to Supergiant?
Right, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about that. I don't know why I forgot about that. That was a big deal too.
I mean, which shouldn't be. And to be clear, crunch happens in industries.
Yeah.
And it's not crunch, we here at Loading Ready Run at Bionic Trousers Media sometimes work more than 40 hours a week. Sometimes we work real hard.
Yeah,
occasionally.
That's the thing. Crunch is meant to be...
But
my understanding of what crunch is meant to be is that it's a thing that happens. It's like when you have to crunch for exams, right? There's like a deadline. You're right there. But it's not supposed to be you have a final exam every week after every week, and so you're doing nothing but repetitive crunching.
Yeah. And it's this thing where it's like the year of development is all crunch, right? Where it's like there's a certain amount, like, stuff happens over the course of development. Bugs happen, unexpected delays, whatever, that can sometimes result in people having to, do crunch. But if the plan is for everybody to be crunching for a year, then something is fundamentally wrong. Yeah. Like something is fundamentally wrong with your setup.
If you have people in your company referring to your mandatory crunch as the expected death march that you expect to have for a 2-year period, no.
I think we also now know on a larger scale what happens when you disrupt human activity, normal human activity, right? Like normal's hard to say, but it's like normal levels, like the kind of variance, the variety, I guess, maybe even the better thing. What happens when you interrupt the variety of human experience for a year or longer, and the kind of physical and mental effects it has on individual people? It's like now we've done a massive social experiment and where we've represented that, and it's like it should be way harder for people to say it's okay if we crunch for a year because we've made some great stuff and it doesn't really hurt people. It's like, no, we all know now that when you disrupt the normal flow of things for how humans have to live, that it doesn't mean that things are getting any better, and it doesn't have good effects on the people that actually work for you. It basically it basically screws them up, and I don't think it results in any better product as a result.
No, it definitely doesn't.
And I make the point here where I'm like, because now that the video game news knows that the label hung on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is made without crunch, that this, I hope it encourages people within the company to come forward and be like, well, I had to crunch. Or I had like to have even one person coming forward and being like, I had to crunch for 2 weeks. It's like, okay, that's good to know. And then maybe that encourages other people to say, well, I also had to crunch. You find out that maybe the entire art team had to do it and the programmers didn't or something, right? But it's like having the honest conversation about it is just what I want to see happen.
And to be clear, actually, and this is actually an important point, Insomniac themselves have not made like Ratchet and Clank was made without crunch a marketing thing. They haven't officially talked about it at all. This is just one. It started out as one of the developers saying like this game got this 89 on Metacritic, and we didn't have crunch. We should, I would like to everybody, retweet this, let people know that this is possible. Just one of the and then other developers, other people who worked in the company did that. So this isn't like if it turns out that some people in the company were, and the guy clarified and said like, to be clear, this is my experience. I can't speak for everyone. And so if other people in the company did experience, some crunch stuff, that doesn't mean that, that's not like hypocritical on the part of Insomniac because they never actually promised anything.
Exactly.
But it's nice to see. And as some people have pointed at or have brought up the thing that a lot of companies, including some Insomniac, do outsource aspects of their production. We don't know. I don't know if people know who Ratchet and Clank portions were outsourced to and whether those people had right. So
exactly.
There's obviously a whole ecosystem around, and there's no way that you can guarantee that nobody worked more hours than they should have.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure people did. But I think there is sort of a culture of kind of like what is expected and what is sort of above and beyond. And that above and beyond thing can be good, but if that becomes what's expected, then you've got a big problem.
Yeah. That idea of well, if you can perform at your best, then why don't you just perform at your best all the time? And it's like, well, then, I mean, for one thing, it'll stop being my best pretty fast because it's just going to get worse and worse. But also, then that isn't my best anymore, is it? That's my normal. It's like, why don't you just make your normal your best? And it's like, because that's not sustainable.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You really, really need to go with the I can't fix the engines. It'll take like 10 hours and they'll be much more happy when it takes me to.
Yeah. We have a car analogy in chat, though. Do you run a car at 100% all the time? And it's like, yeah, do you actually get into your car, turn it on, and then immediately hit the red line and just be like, I just basically am at 100% gas and 100% brake. If I need to stop, I just put my other foot down on the brake and we just stop. And I better just run the car at 100% all the time. And that way I'm getting the best performance out of my car. It's like, I bet you are.
I use the Scotty tactic actually quite frequently because sometimes things happen and then I still get stuff done on time when I do it that way.
Hey, wait a minute.
Sometimes stuff goes up faster and then everyone's really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Beej, I'm starting to think that maybe I'm identifying one of the problems with why I didn't do so well when I took over driving from Ian on like the Le Mans thing.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you're not supposed to accelerate as much as possible and then brake as much as possible and then accelerate as much?
Definitely both not at the same time, for sure. Because I assume you're running 100%, you're pushing all the buttons all at the same time. And that's probably not good for anything.
I don't drive, just so you know.
Yeah, I stopped. I quit. It's not worth it. It's too expensive.
And now we had a few of these little quick points. Minecraft, caves and cliffs and caves. I feel like it's swapped in different places, but anyway.
Yeah.
This was originally going to be a big expansion where they added a ton of stuff and also fundamentally changed the generation, world generation stuff, so that it's actually there's the maximum height and maximum depth of the world is totally different.
Definitely
So
changes the punchable chunk.
yeah, yeah. If what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
is digging big holes, it's going to completely change your thing. That hasn't happened yet. This is
No.
what they've split it into two parts. So part one, is mostly adding new kinds of blocks and uh, new creatures and stuff, such as the the goats, which apparently just like randomly beat you, like bump you off things,
Uh,
and
I'm
the
I the
axolotls,
axolotl.
which
Yeah.
Yeah.
are they predators?
I mean,
They're a
They're
lizard.
they're like
they're
little,
tiny.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's
I feel
there's one in Animal Crossing New Leaf.
There-
He tells bad jokes.
Yeah, so the axolotl in this game though only attacks water creatures. It doesn't attack humans at all. So it just goes after other like fish and stuff like that.
even if
So-
you're in the water, it doesn't attack you.
Yep. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
care
don't
about
think you become a water creature by being in the water, but if you turn into a mermaid, you might have an issue.
Yeah.
Or at least half of you might have an issue.
Definitely discovered an interesting new wrinkle into Minecraft that nobody knew about.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really good at finding the Minecraft meta.
Hmm.
I like that, and I like that they've sort of continued this thing with Minecraft, even though it's like owned by Microsoft and it's much more sort of corporate now than it was. But Minecraft always has this thing where there's all this stuff in Minecraft that makes like that is doesn't make a lot of sense, that it was just like put in there because one of the developers wanted to put it in there
Right.
and nobody told them not to. And so you
Yeah.
have like, like they have axolotls before they have like all sorts of other marine animals that are way more common. But they're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, we want to have that in there. Okay, we'll put those in there. They had it's just an interesting aspect of Minecraft, that it's always been that way, that there's like all this, there'll be like one kind of mechanic that's like incredibly deep and developed but doesn't connect to anything else.
No.
Because there was like some people who are super into that and decided to make that their job, and that got put into the game because of the sort of progressive release of the thing.
Oh, the axolotls look cute.
Yeah.
They're
And like there's a
they're
whole,
very blocky. It's very neat.
it's like somebody spent like there's like a whole thing with like silverfish in the game.
Jeez.
That, like,
no,
silverfish- that like certain blocks can have like silverfish in them, and they'll come out. But it's just like, why would you make that in the game before like so many other things that needed to
Yeah.
be made or fixed
Absolutely.
or added?
I didn't know Minecraft was a horror game. What? Why would you do that?
Anyway.
All right.
Summer Game Fest, which we which is a thing that is not the Video Game Awards.
Nope.
It was actually a surprisingly, like, I was talking to Heather before this stream, and like I felt like, I mean, there was the musical performances I felt like weren't really necessary.
Yeah.
And there was the like interview with the guys who didn't actually have anything to show. They just were like,
oh
"Hey,
my goodness, that interview was so.
we started a studio," and it's like, "Whoop de doo for you."
Oh, tell us about your partnership with Sony. Let us tell you about how Sony has done many great things. Cool. We're not asking you why you want to be with Sony.
Yeah.
That's
Everyone knows
pretty
why.
obvious. Like,
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, what can you tell us about your partnership with Sony?
And-
They gave us money to do what.
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what they were supposed to say to that either, but
Yeah.
the thing that came off at the end, I think, was like, oh, cool, so you're a new studio, and you're working on this cool new mega IP that we're not going to name because you're new, and why would we tell anyone that right now? And I'm like, that's fair, but also, you just said it was a mega IP. but we know nothing about it. So this
Yeah.
is kind of really non-news.
And the fact that it's like, I mean, what was written is 2 dudes who used to work at Treyarch. You'll notice that we didn't actually ever say the name of the new studio, because the point here is being like, these guys used to work at Treyarch. Does anyone remember what Treyarch used to make? Now, if you're of a certain age, you probably will have remembered things that they used to make. If you're of a different certain age, you'll have no familiarity with what Treyarch used to make, and therefore, what's the point of bringing up the fact that, hey, these guys used to work at Treyarch? Isn't that great? It's like, not unless you don't point out why we need to be excited about that, because there's a lot more people out there who don't know who these people are.
The studio's name was Deviation?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they put the eyes in the slant way so it looked like dev at on.
Yes.
Yeah. They were like slashes. It was weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh
I hope whatever they're working on is really cool, but it's just kind of like, for the purpose of this Game Fest thing, this seemed like a really weird thing to have in here.
Yeah.
but yeah, for those
FromSoft.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Treyarch did the Call of Duty games that Infinity Ward didn't do. So every other Call of Duty game,
Oh, okay.
Treyarch, like Infinity Ward would do one, and then Treyarch would do one, and then Infinity Ward
Right,
would do one,
for
and then,
the cycle of like,
Yeah.
we're getting them out one after the other.
Yeah.
and then Infinity Ward went away and became Respawn. And then Treyarch, I think, started making them by themselves. I believe Treyarch made the not good ones. Like Infinity
Oh,
Ward
well,
were the
that's,
people who started the Call of Duty thing.
Yeah.
And then Treyarch came. So yeah, I feel like they weren't like, they were like sort of workmanlike, not like considered to be amazing as a development studio, but
Sure. And I mean, well, where did they come from? Because maybe they have a pedigree of some sort of other, and I don't know. It's always about like, hey, so and so used to work at this studio.
Oh, right.
We got together with these guys and formed another studio, and then that studio falls apart in 5 years, and then some people from there leave and go to form another studio, and it's like, hey, we used to work at this other studio, and it's like, yeah, but I would love to see, like, how many of you are actually from Sierra Online Games, and you just haven't said that so far, like.
Right. Sorry. Yes. Infinity Ward does still exist. Just everybody from Infinity Ward left
Right.
and became
Right,
Respawn.
okay, yeah, it's,
but Infinity
it's,
Ward itself still exists.
It's like when people talk about retro,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's like, when we talk about, we want this game to be made by these people, we mean like the version that was back in this era, not the version that is current.
Exactly.
And some people are like, well, current version doesn't exist in our brains, so it exploded.
Yeah. I mean, really, Studio Theseus would be a hell of a name for somebody coming out of a different company, being like, we all of us left that one company, and now we're forming a new studio, and we're hopefully not going to be given to the same problems that we were in the first place, that led to us having to leave or whatever.
Yeah.
But hey, the nature of people is that
about...
you get old and you retire and you die, and so people will just not be. Miyamoto's not going to be around forever, right?
Cool. You were talking about FromSoft. Can we move on? Let's not talk about Miyamoto dying.
Yeah.
I refuse.
Yeah. The FromSoft actually got to announce a release date for a game that I actually have no idea what it was.
Elden Ring.
I know what it is. I just have no idea why it's important.
I mean, it's
Everybody's really excited for
the next big FromSoft game.
Yeah.
It's J.J.R. Martin's last book of Game of Thrones that's not coming.
George R.R. Martin.
Like I told you, I wasn't good with names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Now chat knows too.
Though I love J.J.R. Martin is actually kind of a weird mashup of a few different things going on there. Voiced by J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, people seem to be, stoked about it. It looks cool.
Yeah. Apparently horses can jump.
No, they levitate. Just like,
oh, like in Red Dead Redemption. Oh, I see. Okay,
like the horse just like runs up to a cliff and then just goes like. It's great.
It's good. That's good. That's what you want. Is you want your jetpack horses. Yeah.
Yeah. This game got announced a couple years ago, I think, or something. the people were waiting for more news about it, which is why people are very excited about having a date on it. It's not my kind of game. It's not a game I'm going to play. Which is why I'm somewhat unsure about when it got announced. But
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't actually. I knew like a game had been announced. I didn't actually remember what the name of this game that everyone like the From Software game that people were all excited about was until
Right.
I had the actual chat of the stream up on like the other window while we were doing our thing, which was obviously mostly useless because you people in chat are awesome, especially in the sense that you are often talking about like what is actually happening on screen and not just
yeah, and conversing with us.
and not just spamming like, oh, that seemed to be like the biggest thing, like O's and like O H H H H H H H H H. That was like
Yeah.
50% of the messages. Like this was before the stream started, like while it was on the opening screen. I don't understand. Or people would also just like, this is again before the stream started, while it wasn't a thing, people would just spam like names of games. They'd be just like, Among Us.
Oh yeah. I've watched video game chats during Nintendo Direct specifically, and they are almost always like, we're trying to guess the game, but we're also basically just yelling the name of the game that we want, and how dare you not tell us.
Anyway. But when the trailer came out for this, people were going little bonkers. And that it was on like follower only chat already at that point, but it was still like
we had Heather and I had a brief discussion last night while brushing teeth, so it was hard to understand. About
I wish we'd stopped.
All discussions take place while brushing teeth.
Yeah, but about Death Stranding Director's Cut.
Right.
Because naturally, the funny bit being that Hideo Kojima, who has full creative control over that game.
Yeah, what aspect of Death Stranding is not like Hideo Kojima wanted it to be?
We don't need director's cut versions of games.
But it did make me wonder, because I'm like, because when you think about what director's cut means, it's generally in the sense of a movie, right? Like we don't see director's cut versions of television shows or director's cut versions of. We might see an unabridged version of a book, right? But you don't.
That's true.
You largely don't see this. You see it mostly in movies, and you see it only in movies that have been a certain success rate. And the idea of a director's cut is that when we've made a version of a game, or we made a version of a movie, that was an agreement between the director, the producers, and the editors. That
the company funding.
They had to all kind of come together at the same time to be like, this is the movie that we can put out, that the director is as happy as they're going to be with it, as based on what the editors have been able to put together, based on what the producers have say, this is what we're willing to pay for. And that they focus test the hell out of it or whatever, and be like, we can release this thing, that's the movie. And then a director's cut is always the director being like, well, there's footage that I didn't use, or there's takes I didn't use, or there's stuff I didn't put in a certain order, and I really would like to be able to do that. And so now that it's been a success, and as you said, it's always because it's a success.
Generally, because you're selling it again, so you're not gonna see a director's cut of a movie for sale that tanked.
Yeah,
it seems very unlikely that would happen.
Yeah,
and the idea where it's a game doing that is unusual, I think, because I don't think that's a common thing to do in the industry.
I mean,
like you might have a Game of the Year version, right? But
yeah, like I think in a lot of cases, the term director's cut here is being used in the context of like Game of the Year edition or definitive edition or blah blah blah, where it's just like we're gonna add a little bit of stuff to it.
I don't like the implication of another version of a game needed. Or that, because director's cut sounds like, oh, I put some things in the game that you haven't seen before, whereas DLC is like, oh, okay, well, we have this additional piece, and then when you get a definitive edition later, it's like it involved Beach has eye problems. He's gonna go fix them now. But like the implication of a director's cut, like the joke being that like somehow he didn't have creative control over that game in the first place.
How
Also, is it just going to be him taking a box down and then standing in it? Is that because if that's a good troll move, and I will be 100% behind a director's cut that's the only thing that gets
Like,
added to the game. There's one room
I'm
you can walk into, a box you can pull down and stand in, and that's it.
like I'm pretty sure, having played it fairly recently, I'm pretty sure that room and those enemies do not appear in the game. At least not. I didn't never saw them. So
I've never
I don't know.
played, so I can't confirm. But I believe you.
Has a director's cut of a movie ever been shorter? Like the director
I
was
generally
like,
think they've been longer.
I don't know what I was thinking. This scene is so long. New cut.
I can tell you. I can tell you if I were to ever make a director's cut of a movie, it would be a completely different movie with completely different people in it, and not, or the movie again, but like acted out with different people or something very trolly that would be like, yeah, it's my director's cut. I got to do whatever I want, so I did.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I can't think of like some movies that need those cuts, and the trope is that the director's cut will always be like longer and more, involved.
Emotional. It gives the thing new nuances and context that they forgot to add in the movie the first time because they needed to make that 89-minute cut.
But I kind of like the idea of like a director's cut being like the director, looking back, going back to a film that he made like 10 years ago when they were a new director, and looking back with fresh eyes and being like, oh man, I could have cut this way differently. Like, this scene is so long. Why is it so long? Oh yeah, we can totally cut this. Like,
Yeah.
like we look back at old sketches and stuff, you could see things that you would have done better, right? I like that. I
easily,
like that
yes.
idea that somebody would actually do that as a director.
I like Eshblodes in the chat wrote just re-release the original version of the movie but with a director's cut sticker on the front, and now I just want to like get some stickers and go and troll some stores.
I think we should be releasing extended cuts of old sketches that are actually shorter.
I mean,
Because
they're extended, but in the negative direction.
exactly, right?
I mean, if we wanted to make a longer thing that's extended real easy, I could add a bunch of black space at the end. With nothing.
We do a bunch of edits where it takes things down so the sketch is tighter, but then after the stinger is just all the things we cut out in order.
Yeah, because I think when you make a shorter version or a tighter edited thing, it's generally referred to as a re-edit as opposed to like a director's cut or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
Good thing we're past April.
Fortnite they're continuing to add random people from random franchises. They did we talked about the crossover with the comic book crossover, not in Fortnite. There's a comic book crossover where Batman is in Fortnite. I don't think Batman has actually been in Fortnite, the game, but Superman now is.
Good.
So, and while you don't see it in the trailer, presumably he can have a gun and shoot people.
Just like Superman normally does. And not only that, he's susceptible to bullets. So we know that either all the guns are kryptonite, or the bullets are kryptonite, or
no yellow sun.
Or
it's on a completely
just
different planet.
A guy dressed up in a Superman outfit. Maybe
Boy,
it's
I
not
like that
actually
idea
Superman.
way better.
There's that. Which makes more sense for the using of guns, but I was going to ask if maybe, because Batman in older comics had a gun, I believe. So, like in original comics, did Superman have a gun? And they were like, "Oh, maybe we won't do this anymore," and they like stopped.
Don't think so.
Did he have gun laser eyes or something?
I mean,
like,
he was faster than
bullets coming out of his eyes instead of the lasers. Not, I don't know. I'm anything like that I'm unaware of.
It just feels weird when you give people a skin. I'm going to dress up as like Thanos and run around with a tiny gun. It's like I don't. Sometimes these things, or Darth Vader running around with a gun, like it's like Darth Vader doesn't. Darth Vader has
Makes
the
a lot of sense.
Force,
And
I feel
yeah,
like Darth
the
Vader actually could have been
lightsaber,
pretty
yeah.
effective with the gun.
right?
Yeah, probably.
The movies
Like,
might
I
have gone
feel
quite
like he'd be
differently
better
if
at it.
he had
Yeah.
some
Or
sort of big assault
C-3PO.
rifle.
No, I think dress up as C-3PO in Fortnite and have a big ass gun.
See,
Give C-3PO a rocket launcher. That movie is now entirely different.
You just said dress up as, but
Yeah.
previously you said skin, and referring to costumes as skins actually still weirds me out in video games.
That's fair. Yeah.
Maybe it's because we watched Men in Black the other day.
Yeah. I'm imagining the outfits in Fortnite, kind of like, basically like a full body version of the like Mission Impossible masks.
Ah,
Where you
yes.
just like, or just the thing where you in movies where they're like zip.
Yeah, it's like there's like
Open up.
some extra skin because you don't quite fit the outfit
Yeah.
that you got. Like, the games are weird.
And EA has gotten the hack and had people steal their source code for FIFA 21.
Yeah.
Like you said that like they got some sort of virus. They got the hack.
Yes. The hacking was done and they lost their stuff.
I think according to something I saw on ours, it's like the hacker has somehow already put a notice up to say like they're going to be reselling this. But I'm like, okay,
from what I have seen anyway, I haven't seen anything that indicated that this was like an egregious security fault on EA's part. Like it, obviously they had a security problem, but it wasn't like there was something that they were doing that was really stupid. They were just, something happened. They were targeted. And stole the source code for FIFA 21, the matchmaking code, and the Frostbite engine. Which it's kind of funny. The headline for this on, I think it was on like the BBC or some other website, had like the source code for Call of Duty 2049. 2049?
okay. I couldn't even tell you, but
which is like or Battlefield 2049, and it's
Okay.
like the engine that Battlefield 2049 is being made in, yes.
Yes.
The game itself, no.
No.
So it's a little bit of a deceptive headline.
Yeah, so Peach posted a tweet in chat that for a Vice article that explains how they got into this, and it looks like it boils down to they bought a cookie online, they logged into the EA Slack, and then they tricked IT support to give a login token for the EA network, telling them that they lost their phone at a party last night.
So a little bit of social engineering, which is the thing.
Yeah.
So maybe like a bit of a security thing that they're probably gonna want to
That's
tighten up on.
surprising as hell that someone in the IT department would be like, oh, well, I lost my phone last night. And it's like, well, they are on the Slack. And it's like, come on, guys.
People want to be helpful, It's
I know. And I wanted to be helpful too. But like, I had to confirm so many things when I was working on the data center triage. It was like, I had to be like, I need to know who you are and I need to have more information from you. And yeah. But you do. Sometimes it's like, sometimes an email directly from them or directly from them and their supervisor is enough. And you're like, those are both things that we know we control, so we can go from there. But if, in this case, it's like, you think you control the Slack, I guess you don't control the Slack.
I mean, the weak point of a lot of things typically tends to be people, because people make mistakes.
I mean, in the loading ready run Slack, there are times when people are like, hey, what's the Steam login?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If that person had been hacked.
That's a very good point.
That's often why they get texted later.
Yeah.
By the people who know those things. Not
we don't do it all through the same.
We don't actually write it in the Slack.
Try not to do it all in
It is a
public,
good point. Sometimes people just ask, and I think maybe a couple of years ago we probably would have been like, "Oh, it's this."
Mm-hmm.
The the best dunk on EA. I've heard about this. Is it's like they've got the FIFA 21 code. Oh no, that means they also have the code for FIFA 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Yeah. It largely, it's, as we talked about in the past, it's like you get these things and what do you do with them? Like, it's like stealing the Hope Diamond, right? It's like you get these things and you're going to, what's your end game here? You have to sell it to people who want it illegally in the first place and people who aren't going to be bothered by getting the illegal stuff.
That would be for cheating, wouldn't it?
I mean, largely it's going to be so you can build cheats around it, and then you have
if you have sort of internal knowledge of the engine, yeah.
And then therefore it's the people buying it have to have an entire cheating infrastructure built out of like making money off of manufacturing and selling cheats to people, and that is a thing that exists. And it's like it's a really specific reason to need this stuff. It's not like you're like, I'm going to go sell the Frostbite engine to another studio and they'll be like, great, now we can just use this, right?
Yeah, that'd be really weird.
It's sort of a digital equivalent of like a fence.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have this thing, I need you to turn it into money for me.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
And it's like, I can't sell the Hope Diamond to a museum. I can't sell it to a reputable collectors. I have to sell it to somebody who doesn't want to know that doesn't want anyone to know that he owns this thing now.
Private museum.
Anyway, and then there's this fruits basket special. This is a special event in Animal Crossing.
No, this is just the Fruits Basket team either, as far as I can tell, either hired an illustrator to do this, or it's something they're doing within even just the studio to do it. But it seems like it's official in the sense that it's officially supported, like encouraged by the people who publish it. But it's like, I don't think they hired someone or tasked someone within the company to do it. Like, I don't actually know where the pedigree is here. All I know is that it's like, this is official. This is as much as we know as it's supposed to be official.
It's official in the sense of like those other islands we've seen where it's like, oh, this brand has made an island that people can go visit or check out the dream code of.
Yeah.
But this isn't something that like Animal Crossing is doing. This is something that
absolutely not. Yeah,
it's just something
not a Nintendo thing.
Within Animal Crossing.
So it's less an Animal Crossing event and more of a like Beige Life event. Is really what this.
That's all it was.
Is Beach pointing out that we watch a current anime. That he was excited about current anime getting a game he likes, and then making a reference to something that happens later in season 3.
Yep.
Wow, spoilers, yo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was actually quite happy to see a couple of people comment that you had made a deep cut, because that's both a good pun for what you said and acknowledgement of why you said what you said.
Mm-hmm.
When I first read this thing, I thought that there was like some sort of Animal Crossing fruit basket event where like you go around looking for fruit. That was
The Fruits Basket is a game they used to play where everybody gets assigned a role as a different type of fruit, and then it's kind of like it felt like a Duck Duck Goose or musical chairs kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a musical chairs type thing.
Yeah.
Everyone sits. We have another game that's like that, but it's everyone sits in chairs in a circle. There's a person in the middle. You call out for the fruit, and then everyone who's that fruit gets up and they run to get to a different chair, and the person in the middle gets a chance to do that as well. But you can call Fruits Basket, and then everybody who gets into the thing, all together.
And so, because of what happened to Toru, is that when she was a young kid and she was playing this thing and doing whatever, is that they made her the onigiri.
Which is not a fruit, so
which means she never gets to stand up and run around and do all the fun things.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's horrifying that a teacher would let that shit happen in the first place.
It's bullying in Japanese culture, from what I've seen with regards to anime, is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very brutal. It's isolationist. It's doing things like pretending people are dead by putting flowers on their desk.
Yeah.
It's really brutal.
Yeah. And she never did anything to deserve that either.
Oh, of course not.
No.
She's pure and sweet.
She is.
Speaking of brutal and isolationist, I guess, Golf Club Wasteland
Yeah.
is a game that's coming out. It's one of these surprisingly common genre of like adventure golf games that is apparently like a whole thing.
It's definitely becoming its own genre, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's cool.
99% of human life has been wiped out at the hands of consumerism. And now the Earth is one huge golf course for the ultra rich who have fled to Mars.
I see they went with a nonfiction story.
Yeah.
You will be playing through a post apocalyptic course for one last round, piecing together the fall of humanity in between each successful putt. There's no like additional part to this. I
Okay.
just marked this as a story because I thought it was a funny idea for a game.
It's a fantasy because we all get to play as the ultra rich.
Well, I mean, there's that, but that's the thing. Wait, you said that the people who survive and go to Mars to play this last round of golf is super rich.
Yeah.
And that while you're doing it, you're piecing together what happened that caused the world to explode. Well, chances are you were part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do
Too much
wonder how
golf,
far
that
it is
was
in the
the
future.
problem.
So yeah. This might be one of those things where it's like, oh, this happens like 100 or 200 years in the future, and so you're coming back to see you are largely blameless because you're a child of a child of a child that you have no idea.
Yeah. It's always like I get worried when post-apocalyptic like movies and games and stuff set themselves like 5 years in the future. It's like,
Yeah, a
come
little
on,
bit.
man.
There's a new TV series on Netflix that is an apocalyptic thing called Sweet Tooth that I need to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of like things with antlers, I know that got talked about at the end during the after
Mystic
chat.
Elk. Mystic Stags, I think, is what we should call
Yeah,
that
yeah.
genre from now on. Mystic Stags.
That's
That's going to be the name of a game soon, and we won't be able to call it that, but whatever.
Speaking of
Expansion pack.
EA, they did announce this Battlefield 2042, which is their next big deal thing, with two big changes. One being no single player, so there'll be no single player in it at all, which I'm mixed as somebody who primarily plays single player games. That I find that disappointing. Although, as somebody who has never actually played the single player of a Battlefield game, I can't be like that.
Have you ever played
I
a
can't object
Battlefield
that
game?
strongly.
It's
But
the,
just
the take on.
in general, the video game industry moving away from single player things in AAA titles concerns me.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean to pull on a personal experience,
Okay.
Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes
Yes.
is a game that is like it is enjoyable single player where you have to then kind of wrangle three different dudes. But it's a better game when you can get three people together to play it. The multiplayer is a lot more interesting in that regard.
It's very much made for multiplayer. It's
Yeah.
not that single player. They give you workarounds for single player, and it's okay, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a multiplayer experience.
And so the idea of, to me, who likes Legend of Zelda games, to find out that there's a new Legend of Zelda game coming out for the 3DS, I'm like, oh, great, that's awesome. It's like, and it is, and as Heather tells me, exactly what you just said, and I'm like, oh, well, that's too bad. And then I just kind of let that wash off me like, water off a duck's back, because I'm like, that isn't going to be a common thing, right? And as Paul, you just said, Battlefield 2042 being a game where it's like, this is a game where we don't have any sort of single player nod, and also this is becoming more prevalent. A lot more games are being released that are a multiplayer experience first and maybe no single player experience whatsoever. It is a little concerning to think that it's like, what if that is the direction we start slowly going towards in genres that people enjoy playing? I like to play Zelda. If all the Zeldas became this weird multiplayer thing, I'd start to get quite upset about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first-person shooters have long been, and I mean, in the Summer Game Fest thing, the number of like big, MMO type multiplayer things that were being shown off was very high.
Right.
All 90% of which I'm sure will be defunct in 2 years or so, because there aren't room for. It frustrates me
thus
because
the nature.
it's like the single player games, people can play it for like, a week or 2 weeks or something and get a good experience out of it. But it's just like there isn't room in the industry for that many MMOs. Like there can only be like half a dozen that actually have enough community that people play them regularly and can pay for their servers and stuff.
Yeah.
Which half a dozen they are varies sometimes, but there's just so many people making them because the ones that succeed make so much money, but it's just such a crapshoot.
And not every gamer is someone who is attuned to playing that kind of game. As an example, Heather,
Yes.
if they made a Pokemon MMO, do you see yourself playing a Pokemon MMO for a long period of time?
I'd want to try it, but I don't think I would stick with it.
I tend to play games to like get away from other people.
That's my. I mean, I the problem. Well, you suggest a Pokemon MMO,
Yeah.
and the thing is that excites me because that gives me a lot of things that I'd like to see within Pokemon, like the possibility of getting to like play a role like Nurse Joy or just like something that's different. That's not the main. I go around and I catch a bunch of friends and then I make them fight.
Yeah.
And then I have to become the best fighter or whatnot. I want the spin-off games that are like typing and Pokemon breeding or whatever kind of thing. And an MMO generally allows for a lot of that flexibility.
Right.
But then I do have to play with other people. And generally games I really like don't have people playing the MMO version that I could hang out with.
Right.
And then I'd have to play with strangers, and I don't do that on the internet for a variety of reasons.
People in chat are bringing up, well, these things exist. I'm like, I'm not talking about them existing. I'm talking about whether it's the best gameplay fit for people who like to play games a certain way. And yeah, this idea of Battlefield 2042 being a multiplayer first, but maybe even multiplayer only version of this game, for anyone who is looking forward to the next release of this, they might be like, well, that's fine, I guess. Water off a duck's back, and I will go find another FPS that's a thing to do. But the creeping thing of more and more games starting to adopt this idea of it's got to be a battle royale and it has to be this many things and all that, then it's like,
and
we gotta wonder, right? What is actually the future of part of this industry?
And there is like a new, obviously, on the internet you can't have a nuanced opinion about stuff, but there is an aspect of this, right, where of course, there's a lot of bad blood or stuff about, entitled gamers who, whine, complain about, it's like, this game isn't what I want it to be. And it's like, well, then just go play another game.
Right.
Which I think, it's legitimate for developers to get annoyed about that. But at the same time, I think, and at the same time, I think it's reasonable to be unhappy at a trend you see in the industry. That doesn't mean that you should be threatening developers and yelling at people and stuff.
God,
of course
no.
not.
Yeah.
But I think it's reasonable to see a trend in the industry and be like, oh, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And to be fair, as somebody who does play primarily single player games, that is a trend that I've been seeing for a long time, but there are still lots of single player games around. So I don't think I don't think we're going to be like running out of single player games anytime soon.
I don't think anyone's going to stop making single player games outright. I do think what Paul said about like I don't understand why everyone keeps making an MMO, because that is kind of a limited space for a very successful MMO. That's true.
And that's not because they're not making it for me. I'm just sad for them. Like, they've spent so much work on it, and it's just sad to see all these games that, while they're not the kind of games that I like to play, obviously have taken years of people's work that are basically doomed. Like, there's no way. Like, Amazon is bringing out 2 different MMOs. They're competing with themselves. I don't understand it.
That is a little... yeah. But like as we said, Battlefield 2042 was never a game I was going to play because it's not my kind of game.
No.
But if this was like if we said, oh, when Splatoon 3 comes out, they're not going to bother with a single player campaign,
Yeah.
then I'm definitely not getting Splatoon 3.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I think it looks super cool, because I like the single player campaigns and it helps me learn the game a little bit. And to me, it's like, I'm not really going to play multiplayer, but I might try it out because it's there.
Right.
And then maybe one day that would be the thing that hooks me into it, but it hasn't yet. But
yeah,
the single player portion is why I would end up buying a game like that.
Yeah. And it's, I think that's the larger point, is it's like, not everyone wants to play their games in that same way. And we all are kind of watching to see, like, is because the wind is blowing one way, does that mean that all the studios are going to be like, well, we have to go the way the wind is blowing, right?
If you've ever paid attention to what video game studios tend to do, it's like there's this, generally there's a game that comes out that's very popular. It's kind of doing a thing that is new, or at least it's the popular version of that new.
Yeah.
And then within a couple of years, everyone starts to do that thing. That's why we have so many open world games. When, especially in franchises that never used to do it, and at some point something else new and shiny will come along that looks like it makes more money, and they'll trickle over to that area.
I mean, the one aspect, and to bring it back to Battlefield 2042, the other new thing, not only is it only single player, but it's multiplayer. It's not an MMO, but it is more M than it was previously, because they're going from 64 max games to 128 max games. 128 players in a thing. And I mean, obviously the battle royale genre of game is another one that's totally exploded. But again, like MMOs, there's not that many battle royale games that can live in the thing,
at the
because
same time.
fundamentally you need a lot of people. Like, if you've ever sat in a lobby in like a 5-on-5 game waiting for the queue to fill up, like, when you need 100 people to make the queue work, there's a limited number of games that can sustain that kind of player base. And it's a zero-sum game. They
have to come from somewhere.
It's like
the people who are already interested.
And of course, Battlefield, they're the big guns, so I'm sure they'll do fine.
Yeah,
but
I would think so.
But it's a tricky thing, like that you can't just it's like, oh, this other game is doing so well doing it, I should come into that industry too. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. There's with online games, there isn't the same kind of thing where people often there isn't the same kind of thing where people play it for a little bit and they get tired of it. Some people will, a lot of these games people play for, months or years. And so there just isn't that much. The time that people have to play games is already spoken for. It takes a lot to shove somebody onto something else.
I don't really like deeply entrenched game, because it's just like you only have so much time. Or people who do play stuff like World of Warcraft, and then maybe, I don't know, Sea of Thieves or whatever the big popular multiplayer game is. They tend to have to like play through an expansion, or they'll ship to something else for a little while, and then they'll ship back and forth. And kind of do that. But that is like it's a thing of the MMO space. All at the same time can only support so many things because of how much time people would have to put into it.
Well, and it's also, of course, MMOs in particular, and online games in general, MMOs in particular, have a lot of recurring costs on the part of the developers, not just improving the game, but just maintaining the servers. And we've done stories about basically an MMO will come out, and if it's not successful in a month, 6 months later it'll be gone. Right? Yeah. They'll just turn off the servers. They'll just be like, nope, no point.
We've seen that with like a lot of like battle royale games, even like where it's like, this is not doing as well. It's like, well, we got to take it down and we got to try to fix it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, we're gonna bring it out again. No, we're not. We're gonna just shit.
I mean, part of that's also marketing, because it's like because there are as many of them are. When you have a new one coming out, you have to make it distinguishable, and if you can't get that player base going, or you have like another one competing coming out at the same time as a different one,
Yep.
and people are getting your campaigns confused because maybe they look too similar or whatever. Like there's a variety of reasons why that can end up just dying.
Yeah. I think we've covered this ground pretty good.
Yeah, I
now.
think it's pretty
Yeah,
dead.
it's gonna, a couple other things here, just quickly. The Great Ace Attorney
That's such a good read.
is going to be coming out. In finally coming out. It's one that's the Phoenix Wright game that's been it came out in Japan back in 2019, 2018.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And it's been taken a long time. Oh, even longer than that. It's been,
20. It's been over 5 years.
yeah.
Longer?
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time to localize. Obviously, they haven't been working on it straight for this whole time. But there's this interesting article in Nintendo Life where they're talking about just why the Ace Attorney games in particular are incredibly difficult to localize. They basically, in a lot of cases, they're it's not just a localization; it's actually like a rewriting. They have to come up with all new puns, new names of characters, and new situations. Except they can't change the actual animation of the game at all, and
Yeah.
so they
Right,
have to
yeah.
still match. I mean, they don't have to match lip flaps, but they have to match the timing and the stuff that happens in the actual scenes. And they sometimes have to, like they're talking about they're talking about that, like there's a there was a whole case about that involved very Japanese. What's the
Cultural knowledge. Yeah.
yeah, it involved a lot of Japanese cultural knowledge that they then have to sort of if the player can't be assumed to have that knowledge, then they have to sort of figure out how to make the characters explain it to them in a way
Right,
that isn't
yeah.
stupid.
It's we know culturally this might not be knowledge that a person in North America will know, so we have to give them that knowledge. Whereas if this game is in Japan, and that's very that's knowledge that everybody just knows because of where they live, you don't have to put it in there necessarily because you can assume that most people know that.
And it means that, especially for like in a case like the Great Ace Attorney as well, which is taking place in seems like Meiji era Japan. Like this is during the Meiji Restoration. Like this is a very particular cultural touchstone in change of how what was happening, because the West coming into Japan and Japan opening up, and the the politics involved in that are heady. But this idea of how do we let people know? How do we teach people about these things that are happening? And this is a thing I don't think people realize, is that as a localizer, you're not just a translator, you're an anthropologist. Like you need to be able to understand what it is that other cultures are not going to understand about this culture, and to be able to provide a good enough translation to them to either explain it or to give them something that is akin to it so they understand it.
What
And I
love,
think that's something we're just starting to realize now.
I love they're talking about this because this is set in the past, and so they actually did the translation into English, era appropriate English.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they actually did the translation such that it isn't using words that wouldn't have existed in that era, which is kind of a
Yeah.
neat. It's a sort of a next level idea of like, it's not just, we're not looking at a modern day translation of a Japanese script. It's more like the game was actually written that way, which is
Yeah.
a neat idea.
And it's when you talk about the level of culture that needs to come across. We just did it earlier, actually, where Heather mentioned, putting a flower in a vase on a desk of somebody, whether that's a kid at school or whether that's a worker at at a company, putting a flower in a vase on their desk is not the kind of thing.
It's
If
not
you
a nice thing.
you do that in the West, and people are like, "Oh, isn't that nice? You put a flower on somebody's desk; it's very pretty. It kind of brightens
Yeah,
up
you
their
got them
room
a
or whatever."
flower. Isn't that nice?
It's very nice. You got them a flower. You do that in Japan, you're basically saying that everyone thinks you're dead.
Yeah.
Everyone would prefer that you were dead. Everyone is treating you like you are dead, like that kind of.
Yeah, if you're gonna
thing.
give flowers to a person, you give them to them, and it's not.
Wow.
They're the ones that then put it in a vase or whatever.
Yeah, it's a really, but it's like that's knowledge we got from watching a lot of anime and from having translator notes and seeing the fallout of what happens when you do a thing like that, and you gain that because you've been exposed to the culture of it. But that's the tough part here, and it was great reading how they had instances in like Spirit of Destiny where, because the people that they were having to explain Japanese cultural mores to were foreigners, they're like, oh, we can finally get away with just being able to explain the thing because it's already part of the text, because these people don't know that it's a Japanese cultural more. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting that you were looking forward to that kind of thing.
Well, and pun translation is really hard too, in terms of like, because the puns in Japanese are incredibly different than puns for us, because the words wouldn't, if we just translated the pun straight out, it wouldn't flow. It wouldn't look like a pun to us. It would just be like a really weird mixture of words.
Yeah. I mean, the Maricat mentions a thing here. It's like, if we look at this in reverse, what kind of shit would you have to translate an American game for other cultures? Homecoming? Translate that shit for Canadians who speak English. Absorb a whole bunch of your... still don't know why it's
Homecoming
a thing.
Is the thing they do
What?
at the beginning of the year?
Is it? Is it the thing they do at the end of the year? Is it prom? Is it not a prom? But is it a different thing? Does it have to do with football? I think it has something to do with football.
It's different than prom, because prom's at the end of the year. I think homecoming's at the beginning.
Sure, yeah, but why do they call homecoming? But what does it exist? Oh, it's a football thing. It's a football thing? Why is it football? Everyone has a dance, but you don't dance in football. That's the kind of shit we need.
Is it related to the football?
It is related to the football.
Oh, okay.
Right? And everyone's like, but you mean this? You mean, like, yes, that is the...
I mean, we've made whole videos about what Boxing Day is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
What is a hoser?
Hose reseller.
All right, what else we got here? Pal World is an MMO with, and it's not actually an MMO. Is it an MMO? I'm not
not sure.
It's a third-person shooter, as far as I can tell.
It's a game where you have pals, which are basically Pokemon.
Sure. Yeah, it's Pokemon.
Except it kind of delves into things that the Pokemon world doesn't really touch on, but theoretically probably also exist in the Pokemon world. But basically, you can have them help you with construction. You can ride them. You can use them as cover in gunfights.
Yep.
Yeah.
They kind of don't enjoy that, but
they are making the guns as slave labor in factories and stuff. I was listening to the Podquisition yesterday, because that's when it comes out, and the description that one of them said was that this is the game that PETA,
yeah,
always tries to make Pokemon seem like it is, and someone's actually making it now.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That trailer's weird, because you watch it and you're like, yeah, okay, so you're pretending to be Pokemon and things are cute and you're kind of doing like a farm tour thing, and now they're helping you build a house and that's cool.
Yeah.
And wait, you just picked up that sheep and used it in front, and it looks very unhappy about being used as a shield.
Not
for
mad,
gunfire.
just kind of like, no!
And then we're going to show them assembling guns for some reason. I'm like, the gun thing was already weird, but watching them assemble the guns is real weird. And then the monkeys are moving the things around looking incredibly sad. I'm like, are you trying to show that there is a villain? Because if you had shown there was a villain that you were fighting that was doing terrible things, I could kind of get it. But I think we all might be the villains.
Yeah, are we the baddies?
Yeah.
The description on Steam has, don't worry, labor laws won't be applied to pals.
It's a super weird
endangered
take.
species pals live in the hunting prohibited area. but if you sneak in and catch them, you'll get lots of money. And it's only illegal if you get
Yeah,
caught.
like
I guess it's like, what if we took Pokemon, but what if we made it a really realistic, really vicious kind of... And yet the trailer doesn't belie that. The trailer makes it look like, what a fun place to go spend time. And also they're manufacturing guns. And it's like, what?
I feel
There's
like
such a major tonal shifts in this
I feel
trailer.
like it could be like an anime,
Yeah.
but
There's lots of story to explore, certainly.
there's
don't
also
think I
a
want to.
game called Mighty Goose, which is Metal Slug, but you're a goose. Effectively, you get
Yeah.
to you're a goose that drives around in a tank and
Yeah,
and
okay.
shoots stuff. That's
I could
that's the extent. You're a
I can
goose,
get behind that.
a goose that gets to live out every goose's fantasy.
I mean, I've played Goose games. I'm okay with more Goose happening games.
I hope it isn't a trend that people saw Untitled Goose Game and were like, you know what, if I just put a goose in this, then they'll sell 50,000 copies.
Oh.
Like, I hope that hasn't been a thing.
I feel like if that was going to be a thing, we'd see much more by now. Like we'd see like downloadable Goose into games kind of thing, which I also wouldn't be totally against.
Yeah, I guess in the realm of like dumb downloadable extras in games, adding geese to games, I'm kind of okay with.
Yeah, no, me too.
The Hori Flex.
Yeah,
which
would have been
is-
nice to do a story about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I always like to highlight these stories because it's something that I think is really important. This is a system for the Switch, which is very similar to actually to like the Xbox, the actual
Adaptive controller?
official Xbox adaptive controller. This is a third party thing, but it's basically
Okay.
it takes a Switch's all the buttons of a Switch and of the Switch controllers and not only puts them sort of on a large controller that you can hit buttons on easily, but more importantly, breaks them all out into the standard 3.5-inch headphone
3.5 millimeter.
They're 3.5 millimeter headphone connectors, which is how the standard thing for how adaptive switches work for things. So you can basically build your own adaptive controller that is, from the Switch's perspective, is just a controller. It's super neat, and I'm fully in favor of as much of this kind of stuff as possible because they're super cool, and I love this situation. Like, there's you see various sort of custom made systems, but things like this where it's like, we can't custom make something for everybody, and people have such different needs for what their controller is going to be.
Accessibility needs are varied and a variety. I don't know. There's a lot of them, and it's hard to figure them all out. But we should. The effort is definitely should be put into it.
It is
What I
called
think is
Hori Flex, Hori Flex.
Yeah,
A weird name.
It's 2 words. Yeah, Hori is a company that makes an awful lot of makes an awful lot of controllers and whatnots, and a lot of them that seem to be
accessories.
very like heavily blessed by Nintendo. Like they're always going to be the first ones out the gate with a third party something or other.
It's the brand you know as a third party that seems trustworthy.
Yeah, exactly, and that it's a really interesting thing that Hori, who has been doing so much in terms of making stuff, that they're coming from a perspective as hardware manufacturers being like, we need to make a thing because we know we'll actually make money at making the thing. Whereas Microsoft can say, we've made the Xbox adaptive controller because we know that having one of these things is very important, and we also know that for accessibility, and that therefore we also want other manufacturers to adopt this as a reference standard. We want you guys to say, we will make this, and that not only just any third party could like make another version of this, but more that we want Nintendo and Sony and we want PC companies and everything to adopt this as an idea to be like, please plug this into your system to make it something that your players can use. We're not interested in making it a Xbox only situation. We want to release this into the world to do some good. And they can absorb that. They can absorb the cost of manufacturing and everything else. Hori, on the other hand, I hope that it's either that they're like, we're willing to take the risk on it, or that we're doing so well that we see the value in making a Flex controller for people, because it's
and that the
something we need to
market
be able
is
to make
there.
money back on. Yeah,
Yeah.
the market
Yeah.
exists.
I mean, I'd love for it to be a thing of we're doing so well that we put this up, but more also, and I'd love to see this with the Microsoft controller too, because I don't actually know how expensive that is.
Mhm.
But if it's very important and you're doing well enough that you can afford to do it, selling it at a cheaper cost than maybe what it costs to make, so that you also don't have a prohibitive cost to being able, because video games already have kind of a cost associated with them where depending on how you game, it can be hard to get into.
Yeah.
And if you have accessibility issues that require you to have something like a specialized wheelchair or whatever, your costs of being able to do those things are already probably a much higher bar than someone else who doesn't need to pay money for that or can't get help with those things.
Yeah, and the Flex is a Switch controller. It's a Nintendo Switch controller. It's
Mhm.
not a multi-platform controller. They did not announce it as that.
I do like it though. It is nice to see something like this where it is, a commercial product. It's not like it's charity, right? It's not like
No.
it's a thing. Like when something is done, as like a charitable thing or whatever, that's great and all. And it's wonderful that things can be done that way, but there's a limit to how much that, the moment that times are not so good, that's the first thing that's going to go away. Whereas
Yeah.
if there's actually a product that is actually like self-sustainable because it makes money and is actually like a legitimate product, it will actually stick around. So that's,
Well, yes, that's
I
how
like
capitalism
that
works.
aspect
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, but like
Yeah.
that's sort of a positive capitalism aspect, I guess. The idea
Yeah.
that you can, something that is actually, actually is a can be a positive thing and also, make money.
And there's a, so when used to work, I worked at a college where we had a big accessibility department where they had screen readers for blind people and a lot of other things for deaf people, but also a lot of assistive technology in general.
Mhm.
And it was connected to the library because that's usually the best
Well,
place to put
yeah,
those kind of
that's where
things.
where that stuff would go.
And I learned a lot and didn't learn anything at all, because what I learned so much for the little that I learned, that I was aware of what existed in the industry, essentially, that there's even more beyond that. And going to talk to then this is back in like the mid 2000s. I learned so much from just talking to the people who ran that department, working IT there, to be like, well, this is really, and they're like, it's incredibly important that we have access to all these kind of things, and that it's gotten so much better. And I got to see how screen readers worked and how all these other things worked, and I was like, this is miserable to use from a perspective. And they're talking about how much better it is now than it's ever been before, and
Yeah.
it's always had that in the back of my mind to be like, as we see any kind of assistive technology comes out, I just picture these people in the back of my mind being like, oh my God, and going and getting one or two of these and trying to, because they had stuff everywhere. It's like, we've tried all these things, we've tried all these different aspects and all these different ways to get access to it, and using them as ways for people to gain access to the larger technological universe. And I'm just seeing this and thinking of those people being like, they're super excited, being able to be like, I can go get this thing and maybe we can use it for something else, or we can find a way to use it in the ways that's important. And I'm just like, there'll be hospitals out there being like, we need to get these things so we can plug them into the stuff, so we have people here who can use them.
I hope that when they designed this, they had people test them who could use them for that thing, because like, it's very easy to be like, aha, I've now solved this problem.
Right.
But when you don't experience it, and when you go to try and do it, you're like, well, this seems to work fine. Like, you don't really know.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have that experience yourself.
To be clear, this thing has actually been out in Japan for like a year now. So it has been out for a little bit. It's just now being available in other countries.
Cool.
So anyway, those looks like basically all the stuff that we need to talk about. And this was long chill point.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, lots of
I
important.
expect next week
to talk
might
about.
also be a little long, just with the rest of the gaming stuff that might happen over the weekend.
So let's see what's coming up next on the stream. That's not the button to do that. That's the button to do that.
Nice.
What's coming up next is Friday Night Paper Fight. We're going to be doing some more Modern Horizons 2 Sealed. If you've seen the PPR or some of the extra bonus games that have been going up on the YouTube channel,
Yeah, the last one went up this morning.
we're going to do more of that. Well, all new, obviously, all new decks and everything. And yeah, this is just, it's going to be Graham and Ben and Nelson and Serge, I believe.
All right.
Should be super fun. And then Saturday, all day tabletop day, Route, Wingspan, Ticket to Ride, TBH, in that order, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Should be super fun. Starting at 11 o'clock and going until later than that. I don't know how late it'll go. Maybe 7 or 8.
Well, hopefully,
Well, I hope it stops before 8 o'clock.
yeah, that's the hope, given the game stream after.
Because then at 8 o'clock, it's the Beast Trail at Krondor.
We are in the middle of Chapter 6. In fact, we started Chapter 6 in the last session, and I think we're probably this Saturday session and Tuesday session to finish Chapter 6.
Things are really smoking along now, eh?
It's not bad.
And then on Rhythm Cafe, going to be playing Unbeatable, which seems like a tough challenge.
I don't have to play it.
Oh, okay. Cool.
This is Ian's turn to go into the office.
Did you finish Wandersong?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's the game I'm playing, and in 2 weeks I'll go back to playing it.
All
but
right.
it's Ian's turn in the office, so he has to not win, I
nice.
guess.
Yeah. And speaking of not winning, I don't know. Ben Wheeler is going to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! On Is This Your Card? Not the mobile version of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which apparently sucks. And also,
Yes, he
apparently, there are
switched.
a lot of versions of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, I guess if he's playing the same one that he played last week, he must like it. But if he switches, he maybe did not.
Yes.
And then Can't Draw Horses Club on Monday, where they're Corey and guests. I don't know who's going to be joining her, but whoever they are, they may or may not draw horses.
Yeah.
And then on Dice Friends, we have the next of our Candlekeep Mysteries campaign, The Price of Beauty, with Michelle Rapp as the DM for that one. So
Awesome.
that should be super sweet. If you saw the Queer as Hell campaign or our Honey Heist campaign.
Yeah, Honey Heist, she was there for.
Yeah, Michelle as great DM. So lots of cool stuff coming up. loadingrerun.com/live is the place to go to see the full schedule. Now I push this other button and welcome all the subscribers during the stream, including Sayaracot 895 here for 2 months.
And Laura K. Buzz was gifted a sub by an anonymous gifter. They also rated our channel at the beginning of the stream, so thank you for that.
Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Derlitz Teshre gifted 5 subs as well to people in chat. Hope you're enjoying them.
Speaking of awesome DMs, Dale Friesen was gifted a sub by an anonymous gifter.
Superman skin gifted by Crunchy Door Date. Both are interesting names.
Also Super Dead Smurf. Got that 22 months.
Yeah, not a successful superhero.
No.
Oh, and Soraya caught Arcot.
I think it's Cy Arcot.
Cy
Arcot?
Arcot. $8.95. Only here for 2 months, but already given bits. Thank you so much. Also, Gap Filler, thank you.
And Not Kane or Able right there at the end.
And Not
Thank you,
Kane or
everybody.
Able. Thank you very much. All right, let's go offline because I got to switch over to doing this Friday Night Paper Fight pretty quick here.
So you can support us through YouTube memberships on the main channel. That's youtube.com/loadingreadyrun. You just saw the Twitch people go by. There's Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And also there is the store.loadingreadyrun.com. And if you
Ooh.
were a person who pre-ordered pre-ordered or backed the Kickstarter from a while ago to get the season 11 DVDs or Blu-rays, you should have been notified by the store. And if you backed the Kickstarter at like multiple times, multiple amounts, we might not have contacted you to see if you had gotten the thing you were supposed to get. So I would recommend that you contact the store, lurstore@pmcfulfillment.com, and ask them, hey, I think I was supposed to also get a DVD, but I never heard from that.
Yeah, if you believe you should be getting a DVD and have not been contacted, please reach out because back when we did this Kickstarter, the Kickstarter interface for like adding things to an existing thing was very not good. So
Yeah.
it got
Very
kind
different.
of it kind of muddled.
Yeah. We'd really like to get the people who we owe DVDs and Blu-rays to their thing.
Yeah.
Yay. Yeah. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.